Welcome back to my series covering the Freedom Constitution, or the Constitution of the Freedom Founders of the United States. We're covering Article 2, Section 1 in this video. This is the second video of 2 covering this section. There's a lot to get through, so let's dig in. The Intercedent will determine the time of each state must choose their electors, the day each state electorate will conduct its vote and publicly publish the results, and ensure all states' electorates vote on the same day. Okay, so what this is saying is that the Intercedent is the boss of the electorate and makes sure that all the electorates vote on the same day, so we know on the same day who will become the next president of the United States, or if there is a tie. To be eligible for the position of President of the United States or Vice President of the United States, a person must be born in the United States, must be a citizen of the United States, must not be a current or former United States President or Vice President unless the total cumulative time was less than 320 days, must have never been in service to a power, government, military, or business outside the United States or any independent mercenary group or any organization similar to or in support of such an organization, must have continuously resided within the United States for the preceding 20 years, with exceptions for vacation time that cannot have been more than 60 consecutive days or 180 days total, cannot be a citizen of any place outside of the United States, cannot have earned, been gifted, hold wealth of, or be promised more than 4 times the median wealth of all citizens of the United States, must have reached the age of 32 by the first day of the term in which the candidate is to be elected. So there are some differences between what currently happens and what is proposed to happen. The main differences are the candidate can be 32 years old, the candidate cannot be super rich, can be wealthy but not super rich. The presidency and vice presidency are one and done. If you've been a president or a vice president, you are no longer eligible to become president or vice president in the future. If the president dies, is removed from office, or resigns, the vice president of the United States shall assume the office of president of the United States. Congress, with confirmation of the intercedent, will declare a new vice president to serve the remainder of the term. So this is pretty much the same as now, except the intercedent gives a check mark and says, yeah, that's correct, let's do it. This next section really dives into what happens if the president or vice president can't serve, so let's dig in. If the elected president of the United States dies before assuming the duties and obligations of the president of the United States, the vice president shall become the president of the United States. If the elected president does not meet the qualifications detailed in this Constitution, the vice president shall become the president until the elected president meets all the qualifications listed in this Constitution. The intercedent has the sole responsibility for determining the eligibility status for all candidates who seek election to the office of the President of the United States, and Congress may pass no law that diminishes, subverts, or otherwise alters that responsibility. If neither the president nor the elected vice president qualified to hold the position that they sought, the intercedent shall hold conference with the House of Representatives to select 2 United States citizens whom do meet the qualifications, one to hold the office of the president and one to hold the office of the vice president until such time as the elected president or vice president have met the qualification that can assume first the office of the President of the United States, when both are qualified, the office of the President of the United States and the office of the Vice President of the United States. So that was a whole lot to go through. What this says is that if the president is not qualified based on this Constitution at the time of election, the vice president will serve as the president until the president becomes qualified. If neither the president or vice president is qualified, then the intercedent and the House of Representatives will select 2 people, and the intercedent, being a voting entity of government, will probably hold a special election saying, these are our candidates now, choose between these 2 people for president and vice president. Or maybe the intercedent will select a couple people and the American people can choose who the vice president and president are. If the president is determined by the Congress with confirmation by the intercedent to be unable to fulfill the duties and obligations of the position, the president will be removed from the office and the vice president will assume the duties of the presidential office until the president has recovered the ability to fill the duties and obligations of the office of the President of the United States, or until the end of the presidential term. So super simple. Say the president has a heart attack and is in the hospital. Then the vice president becomes the president until the president is out of the hospital and has recovered from the heart attack. And then the president returns to becoming the president, and the vice president goes back to being the vice president. The President of the United States shall receive compensation equal to 4 times the median income of the United States citizens and non-citizens. The income shall not be adjusted within the first 11/12ths of a presidential term. The President of the United States may accept no gift, payments, promises, contracts, intellectual property, or other physical or non-physical items of value while serving as the President of the United States. So what this says is if the president gets a pay raise, that pay raise doesn't take effect until the last 6 months of the presidential term, and the president isn't allowed to accept any gifts from anyone or any monetary benefit from anyone. The terms of the President and Vice President of the United States shall end at noon on the 20th day of January of the year in which such terms would have ended. So the president has to leave the White House at noon on the last day of his elected term or her elected term. The president, vice president, and all federal employees and contractors serving as the president's pleasure must swear the following oath before entering service to and assuming the duties of any office of the United States. This is an oath of office, and it's required for employees of the executive branch. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully execute the duties and responsibilities required of the office position I am entering into. I will preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, and I will place my allegiance to the United States above all other governments, powers, corporations, or other structures of power, influence, or control. So pretty simple. If you're a government employee in the executive branch, your job is to defend the Constitution and do your job. You will put that above any sort of influence or allegiance to anything outside of your job. This oath is pretty critical. It's designed to ensure that government employees are swearing under oath. They can be held legally accountable for the fact that their job is to serve the American people. They're going to do that. That is their job. That's what they're being hired to do, is their job function. Beyond their job function, they are required to uphold the Constitution of the United States. In doing both of those things, they are required by this Constitution, the Freedom Constitution, to say that those two things are not compatible with having allegiance to or providing credence to or supporting any organization other than the Constitution of the United States and the American citizens they serve. Their job is to serve the American citizens and uphold the Constitution. Anything else beyond that is inappropriate activity. They're swearing to this under oath, which is legally enforceable. That brings us to the end of Article 2, Section 1. You can see on the screen, Section 2 and Section 3 are fairly short, and they will be covered in a single video tomorrow. I hope to see you there. If you enjoy learning about the Freedom Constitution and what the Freedom Founders support, and what policies they would like to see enacted in the future, please go ahead and share, follow, subscribe, do all the things wherever you're seeing this so that you can find out more about what the Freedom Founders stand for and the policy actions they'd like to see out of politicians in the future. Thank you, and have a good day.